Okay, stream is preparing. And we are live. Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live. Today we have a very special guest. We've been anticipating for quite a while now, Alan Shipnuck. Alan, thank you for joining us today. You are definitely talk of the town in the golf world, and we've been looking forward to picking your brain. Tons of news to go through, but why don't you start off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into golf, and also I need you to validate something. I heard you are a fantastic golfer to your own right. So give us a little insight on what lured you into our sport and some of your background.
Well, you've been misinformed. I'm a very mediocre 8.4, but
okay,
I'm just good enough to always be frustrated that I'm not better. Yeah, there weren't any golfers in my family really. My mom had a boyfriend when I was an early teenager. He kind of introduced the game to me, and we played a good amount for about a year, and then that kind of ended. But
yeah,
I saw just enough to know that working at golf courses looked like fun, and so my summer job starting when I was 16, I was in Carmel Valley here in California, a place called Quail Lodge for summer. And then I moved over to Pebble Beach Golf Links, and Pebble was really where I really fell in love with the game.
Yeah.
This was the early 90s. It was the second Japanese ownership group, and there was like no oversight. We'd go out and play the course, 3 or 4 times a week. It was ridiculous. I mean, I say I kind of learned how to play golf on Pebble Beach was like losing your virginity to Marilyn Monroe, it's all downhill from there. And so those were amazing summers. I had so much fun. And also a lot of movers and shakers come through Pebble. And so I met the managing editor of Sports Illustrated, this Boston gent named Mark Mulvoy, a legend in the magazine world. And I was an avid reader of the magazine. I'd done the junior high newspaper and the high school yearbook, and I was writing for a local high school or local community newspaper. Like I always knew I wanted to be a sports writer. And so I knew Mulvoy's name just from reading SI, because he used to have those signed, publishers letters at the front. And so I told him my dream in life was to write for SI, and he gave me his card, and we had this like 2-year correspondence that ultimately led to an internship. And my timing was impeccable because I was 94. And the Big Bertha had just come out recently, and kind of there's all this money was pouring in from the equipment industry, and we couldn't. Sports Illustrated literally couldn't fill the pages of this new product called Golf Plus, which was going to subscribers. And so I was just sent out to do a few little stories, and the stories got bigger and bigger. And I wound up writing a cover story when I was still an intern, and that kind of secured my future at the magazine. So
very cool.
It was an unusual path, but I mean, golf became a passion, and it just became what I did.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I just love hearing everyone's stories of how golf has opened up doors, and exactly it has done for you. And anyone who's on Twitter should be checking out your page, because you're very active there at Alan Shipnuck. Very good channel to follow. You're pretty much an open book. So are you tired of talking about your book yet? Or what? Just like,
well, I mean, not tired of it. I spent a year and almost 2 years putting this book together. It was quite a labor of love. And it's funny, there's art and there's commerce, right? And like the art is actually writing the book. That's all I can control. And whether people buy it or don't buy it or any of that stuff, you set it out into the world. And but it's like you have to sort of honor the artistic process by trying to make people aware of it. So anytime anyone like yourself has an interest and wants to talk about the book, I'm flattered and delighted. And so no, I'm not tired of it. I'm drinking some warm tea right now for my throat, because I've been doing a lot of interviews today.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's a good problem to have. I mean, people care about Phil Mickelson, especially right now in this chaotic moment in professional golf. And so he's a fun guy to talk about.
Well, 100%. He always has been. In the title of your book, Phil, the rip-roaring and unauthorized biography of golf's golf's most colorful superstar. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you're nailed it in the head. He is colorful and he's a superstar. We love Phil, and he's taken a beating through the news in the last few months. And I think people expected your book to be a kind of a tell-all and throw all the dirt on the table, but it's not. It's quite complimentary, and and it's a great read. I've read some of the copy you gave us. I've got a paperback, pardon me, a hardcover in Amazon, waiting to get that sent over because I prefer reading, in a book. Like we spend so much time in front of screens these days, so I'm looking forward to really diving into it and getting through the details, not just skimming through the chapters. As I'm going to be transparent, that's how far I've got through. But I'm curious, is there anything in the book that surprised you in the attention that it's got so far?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, and I appreciate your words, because that really was always my intention, was to write a really fair and balanced look at a really complicated person. Mm-hmm. And it's not my role here to tell people that either feels good or bad, or to try and influence what people think about him. I just wanted to lay it all out, all the facts as I know them, and some of my analysis, interpretation, and just, this is who he is. Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting now that the book is out in the wild and getting a lot of feedback from readers. The people who have said I was a Phil fan before and I like him even more now. There's some people who said I'm sort of conflicted, because some passages make me love the guy, some make me roll my eyes, some are infuriating. Yeah. Some people have said they're not quite the fan they used to be. It's just all over the place, and I think that tells me I probably did my job. Mm-hmm. And people are going to bring to it whatever they bring to it. And they're going to come up and they're going to come up with their own conclusions on their feelings about the guy. And because he is so contradictory, and we all have that, we all have our inconsistencies, but with Phil, it's just, the volume is turned all the way up. I mean, he's such a big personality. He's had such a big life. And so it's fascinating, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that sort of high wire act of okay, here's some stories about Phil's philanthropy and his random acts of kindness to fans and his mentorship of young players. But all right, here's some messiness and here's some controversy and just kind of that juxtaposition. I think it's who he is, and I hopefully it makes for an interesting read.
Yeah, I think you really humanized him, because there's a lot to Phil. He's a complex guy. He's made headlines before from issues with stock trading, and but at the end of the day, he's one of the most skilled golfers in our generation, and arguably the most exciting to watch. Because you never know. Phil could have a shot that would be an easy bump and run or something to green, but he'll hit a high flop just for the hell of it, right? So you got to appreciate that, and it's interesting to see him making this move here. I've got our co-host coming in here. I'm going to admit him to the call here.
Okay, great.
Because Raf's been pretty excited to speak with you, but I think it's probably a good segue into Phil. We were wondering how he's going to come back to golf, and here he is. He's going to be at the LIV tournament, and you've stated on Twitter that you're buying your own ticket.
Yeah, I'm going to fly over there. I was thinking of leaving tonight, but tomorrow morning. But yeah, okay. They strangely haven't responded to my credential request, so I just bought some tickets online. I'm just going to show up.
Yeah, I love it. I love the spontaneity of this, and
I know.
What are the chances of us seeing a boxing match behind the bleachers?
Hopefully not, but I mean, we'll see if there's any fans out there. I mean, I might be the one guy who's out there watching golf. I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. It's going to be fascinating. Yeah.
Well, they're looking at broadcasting on YouTube and on Facebook, I assume, and maybe some other social platforms. It's going to be compelling to see how they broadcast this and get it out to the masses. So I haven't caught a YouTube channel for LIV yet, but so we'll see. We'll see. And if they haven't tested this, they could be riddled with tech issues, as we all know. So we're looking forward to seeing how this pans out. Raf?
Yeah, they're kind of winging it, and in some ways, there's a little charm to that. They're just making up as they go.
Yeah.
Obviously, getting the likes of Phil and Ricky and Dustin should make it easier for them to attract some sort of broadcast partner. But in the interim, I mean, we all have our misgivings about where the money's coming from, obviously.
Yes.
But it could be a really interesting fan and viewer experience because they're playing by their own rules. They're not constrained by how it used to be done. They literally have the buy-in from the players. They bought the players, and so if they wanted to interviews walking down the fairway, they want to mic the players and the caddies, I would assume that guys are going to be on board for that. And so it could be actually a really cool TV product if they just keep pushing the limits, and it may help spur the tour, the PGA Tour, to modernize. That some of Mickelson's critique of the PGA Tour is completely accurate, which is that they've never really had competition, and so as an organization they've been complacent, and you can see that when you watch the TV broadcast. It looks more or less the same as it did 10 years ago, and so some competition might be good for golf fans to as both organizations are trying to improve their product. I mean, we could be the winners here. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. Raf, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you see me?
Yeah. Yes,
hey,
we
Raf.
can.
Fantastic, Alan. It's been a long time. I'm in between golf lessons and running back and forth to the Canadian Open, covering that. So the timing wasn't perfect for me. However, let's make this work. I'm so glad you're on. Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live. All our audiences on 15 platforms are excited to have you on. Just to your point, Alan, pretty amazing the fact that Phil Mickelson is actually playing. This announcement was sort of last minute. And your thoughts on how this tournament is going to be different? I know we don't know what to expect. However, you just mentioned that there's a lot of things that are kind of old and stale with the PGA Tour, the way the coverage is done. What do you think they're going to do differently? Or do you have any information on what's going to be different outside the shotgun start and the team play?
Yeah, those are the big ones. I'm not sure that even Greg Norman or the folks over there have the answers to that. They're just trying to figure it out as they go. But I do think the shotgun start's been subject of a lot of jokes, and they're funny. But it also, I like the idea of having every player on the course all at once, because especially on the West Coast, if you sleep in, sometimes you'd wake up and your favorite players already finished their 18 holes. You've missed them.
Right.
That's right.
They literally might use shotguns.
Yeah, they might. I'd love to see Norman roll up with some big 12 gauge like that instead of an air horn. All right, shotguns.
Oh yeah.
Well,
he's an Aussie. You never know. They do some wild things.
You never know, and Norman especially is a wild card. But
yeah.
I'm just hoping that they go all the way. Let's just go for it. I mean, you're never gonna attract the purists, right? They're going to remain loyal to the PGA Tour product. 72 holes of stroke play week after week. Courses they know, and from that they've seen on TV before. So you're going to new venues. You got half the dudes in the field no one's ever heard of. You're already playing with the format. Just keep going. Every crazy idea you've had, just try it, and at least that way you're differentiating yourself.
Well, they're also music's a big thing. They're having concerts every night. They one of the players that I caught the interview with today was talking about intro music, and they're trying to make it a more of a spectacle event. So as a golf fan, I'm intrigued to see something. I do like to see innovation, and so this is going to be fascinating. It gives us plenty of fodder to talk about in the golf industry. So let's do it. So at the end of the day, I think the PGA Tour, it probably has room for improvement. So maybe this forces their hand, and we could see the sport be more compelling to watch.
Speaking of entertainment, I mean, the Canadian Open has Flow Rider, and they've got Maroon 5 this week. It's going to be pretty wild on a PGA Tour basis here in Canada at St. George's Golf and Country Club. It's an older style club. We've got 21 Canadians playing, and that may very well be a record. And really exciting. We've got JT out here, McIlroy defending his title. So a lot of exciting stuff. hopefully it doesn't get overlooked because of LIV. This PGA Tour stop has been a staple. It's the third oldest Open next to the US Open and the British Open. It's been around since 1904, and it's at a classic style golf club. Firing, full circle, Alan, did you ever expect the book to take off this way and for everyone to be trying to get Alan Shipnuck to come on their podcast or TV? I think it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. Like when I'm writing a story, I can kind of feel the energy, and I kind of have a feeling what readers are going to respond to. So as I was working on this book, like I'm laughing out loud as I'm typing, and like I know that this is gonna be a fun book to read. And Phil's a big personality. He's very polarizing. Very few people say, I have no opinion about Phil Mickelson. Like you love him, you hate him, whatever, but he inspires emotion. That's a good thing. And so yeah, I felt confident people were going to find the book and enjoy it. And as I got deeper into the reporting and I started to unravel some of these mysteries about like, the bust up with Bones and the real relationship between Phil and Billy Walters, this famous Vegas gambler with whom he got mixed up in this insider trading case. And, Phil turning down the Bob Jones Award from the USGA, which is kind of an unheard of thing. And I kept uncovering this kind of juicy stuff. So I knew it was going to get a certain amount of attention just for those things. And then the book was due December 1st. That I had this phone call with Phil. It wasn't until right around Thanksgiving. And so,
so there's the question, Alan, was that off the record? Like, was it off the record for him? I know it wasn't for you because obviously
no, it's the same thing. I mean, off the record is a consensual thing, like between, and it's something that has to be expressly like said and agreed upon. And Phil never asked to go off the record. And if he had, I would have pushed back really hard as my one chance to talk to him for the book. I'd gone to him face to face 3 times and asked him to do interviews, and he'd said no. And then at the very end, he said he wanted to talk. So at that point, anything he says is going straight into the book unless we agree otherwise. And we never did. So, given that context that he knew I'm writing this book, he knows I want to talk to him for the book. He calls me. I think it's obvious it's all going in the book unless we agree otherwise. And, but anyway, I'm sorry. I can't remember your question before that.
Well, I was just talking about the fact that
how big the book became. Yeah. So, right. So even before we had that phone call, I knew people were going to find this book entertaining and whatever, but certainly after that conversation, like I knew in the moment what he told me was pretty explosive. I didn't imagine it would send him into this exile. Like, Phil has talked his way out of many controversies throughout his life.
Right.
I mean, and even in recent years, throwing Tom Watson under the bus at the Ryder Cup, the insider trading case, smacking a moving putt at Shinnecock Hills in 2018, US Open. That's right. Like, there's been this whole series of events, and he's managed to skate on all of them. Like he knows how to manipulate the media. He has a lot of charm, and he just gets away with it. And so I figured this would be like a 2-day story where there would be a reaction to his words. Phil would hold a press conference and he'd make it all go away because that's what he's done his whole career. So I think what Phil badly underestimated and what I underestimated was just the level of emotion around Saudi Arabia, and just how toxic their money is. For him to acknowledge their atrocities, but then so callously dismiss them, there was a shock value in that. But it wasn't the words so much as the actions, to admit that he's been sneaking around in the shadows and colluding with them to create this rival tour. Like, that's really what got him in trouble with the PGA Tour and with his colleagues, because they're not that bothered by, the human rights abuses in Saudi Arabia. Like, they go over there every year and play that European Tour event. So
absolutely.
His sponsors operate there.
Yeah. But if the Saudi thing succeeds and they get a huge TV contract and they get corporate support from Mercedes and BMW and Rolex, like, that's money that's getting siphoned away from the PGA Tour.
Right.
So now Phil's potentially threatening the livelihood of the other players, and that's why they were upset.
Right. There's always the argument of the flip side of that coin, where there are so many sporting events and entertainment events already supported by Saudi companies a lot of American companies already doing business in Saudi Arabia, which is, kind of strange. We look at KPMG and other corporations already doing business there and sponsoring events, the Golf Channel showing Saudi LPGA events on their channel and then having the opinion that they do. It's a little bit back and forth with that. But that being said, there is no doubt that there is a problem, where this money is coming from, why people have made the decisions. At the end of the day, people don't want to be political, but you can't not be, right? Greg Norman's been controversial since the 80s. He's been wanting to do a tour for the longest time. So we're not too surprised with Greg's actions, but with Phil's actions, of course, that is surprising. And let's say it the way it is. Phil Mickelson is by far the second best player in our generation. And he's got a lot of character. It's fun to listen to him talk, but he's taking a lot of shots at people. And I don't think people are taking it lightly, because now people will say, hey, he's always thought he's the smartest guy in the room when it came to media. So
yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of people are firing back now and saying, hey, now it's your turn to suffer the consequences for thinking what you thought, the actions that you have taken, and you got to take responsibility. No more getting away with it. Mike and I have talked to countless people, from Gary Williams to Len Matisse and a lot of Champions Tour players, along with media. And it seems that the consensus is that his way back would be, one, to do a one-on-one with somebody, possibly you or someone, and then go out and do a public conference and to address every single question everyone's had. What do you think his return would look like? Because he is coming back to the US Open.
Well, yeah. And I mean, but he's kind of getting things out of the way here in London this week, and he's now, there's pictures of Phil on this red carpet event that are floating around the internet from tonight in London. Like he's not following the traditional playbook. I think you look at like when Tiger returned from his scandal and how stage managed the whole thing was.
Yes.
The little 5-minute interviews, and then obviously the public statement where he didn't take any questions, and his mom's in the front row, and
right,
like there was all these different events to work up to kind of reacclimating into public life. And it looks like Phil's just going to parachute in, play a tournament. He'll either speak to reporters or he won't. But you can't dodge him forever. I mean, that just becomes a huge distraction and an energy suck. So at some point he's going to talk to somebody. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Phil just does things his own way, and that's kind of a theme that runs through the book. And Peter Costas, who knows him well, because they were living in the desert together, and Costas was kind of an unofficial swing coach for Phil. I mean, he there's a quote in the book where he says, "I don't think Phil's ever done anything in his life he was told to do, except maybe occasionally from Amy." But and he said, if you want to be critical, he surrounded himself by yes men his whole career. It doesn't seem like Phil's getting great advice on how to manage this whole situation. It even goes back to his first statement in February, even this most recent one, that they've kind of been all over the place. So I think Phil's just going to do it his way, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and part of you can love him for that. Just to ride your own horse the way you want to. I think the golf world does want to see him play. He is 51 years old, or about to be 51 years old. So we don't know how much good golf we have left in Phil. So the fans want to see it. He's treaded a fine line, with the Saudi league. But I think at the end of the day, if Phil starts to play like he does in the past, people will start to forget and start to enjoy their golf.
I think that's right. I mean, there's been a void. We felt that obviously at Southern Hills, felt at the Masters. Phil's just a monumental presence in the sport, and he's a fan favorite. People love to watch him play. They like listen to him talk. So I think that fans are ready to welcome him back. That I thought the best road to redemption was on the PGA Tour. If he had renounced the Saudis and expressed a little contrition, but that's not Phil's way. He's a double down personality. I mean, you see it on the golf course, you see it in Vegas. And so he didn't want to concede defeat here, and so he went all in with the Saudis. He just pushed his chips right into the middle of the table, and there's a risk there.
Yeah,
but
100%.
I guess you can, as you kind of said, you can sort of appreciate him for being authentic. There's something to be said for that. And even his comments to me that got him in such a pickle, like they were real, they were honest, and he went off script. Everyone goes to Saudi Arabia, they take their money, but they say, "Oh, I'm just here to grow the game," or I'm an athlete, not a politician. And we all roll our eyes. We know they're there just for the money. That's obvious.
Yeah.
But if you stay on script, you can sort of get away with it. But Phil didn't play that game, so I respect his candor. And
more so than any other sport, Alan, these players are not getting paid what they should get paid. If you're going into an event and like the Champions Tour, the boys are taken care of. Even if you finish in last place, you're going to make a paycheck. A lot of these guys are independent contract. Well, they're all independent contractors going week by week, and the expenses incur. Unless you're a top player, it could get pretty expensive. Tell us, let's pivot a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with the Fire Pit Collective, and where can people get in touch with you or your book, and where can they buy it?
Yeah, well, ideally you buy the book at your local independent bookstore and help them, survive or thrive. But it's certainly available at Amazon and BarnesNoble.com and any of those big places. Electronic version, I read the audiobook, which was a fun challenge. So
great.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah, the Fire Pit Collective, that's my day job. We launched basically a year ago. It's a sort of a modern golf media company. We've got some great people working for us. We just hired Michael Bamberger, who's kind of the dean of the golf beat. No offense to Canada's own Lauren Rubenstein. And I love Lauren. And Ryan French, Monday Q Info. He's really brought a huge spotlight to a different part of the professional game that people weren't really paying attention to. Jeff Ogilvy, US Open champ, he's one of our investors, and we're using him for podcast and the word escaped me as we're on a podcast, and even some video storytelling. And so just a lot of interesting voices, and we're just committed to doing it our way. We're all trained journalists. There's a lot of sort of new media golf companies that they brought a lot of energy to the beat, but they like to point the camera at themselves, and we like to point at other people and tell their stories. And so it's just kind of more classical storytelling. And we're just really proud of it. It's only been a year.
Great.
We've got a really nice readership and fan base, and we're starting to get some of the corporate support we need to be self-sustaining. So it's a leap of faith. Can you build a media company in the year 2022 if you're not owned by a billionaire or part of some huge corporate conglomeration? We're going to find out. We're doing the best we can, but
you're doing a good job so far.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. For us, we're extremely independent. Mike and myself, we do this out of the passion of the sport. Been involved in many different ways over the last 25 years. I covered for radio on CJAD 800 AM and did a couple of Canadian Opens and President's Cups. However, this was really a passion project for us, and we're trying to make it work, and we're making it about the other people. And the best people to talk to are the writers like Bob Harrig and the analysts and people that really know the game or have that experience to talk about the game in a very professional way. And so we're having some wonderful guests. I find when we get the young players on, they don't have much to say. Although we love having them on, we have the Champions Tour players, and they're like a historical record of the game, and they could go back and talk about moments and funny moments and embarrassing moments, which brings me to my next question, Alan. If I think about funny and embarrassing moments in golf, is there anything that comes to mind, either from the book or something that's happened in your career while you played with a notable player or analyst that was just plain funny or embarrassing?
Yeah, gosh. Well, if I think about my own golf game, this still haunts me. I was playing in the first Tee Open here at Pebble Beach, which is a great senior tour event where you've got a senior tour star, and then you've got a kid who's in the first tee, and then there's two amateurs. And I was paired with Alfonso Ribera. People know him from the actor.
Him.
Yeah, he's a good golfer, right? And my game was rusty. I was struggling. I hadn't played in a really competitive scenario like that. And I on the 13th hole at Pebble, I missed about a 2.5-foot putt that really mattered. And so off the 14th tee, there's this porta potty, and I went in there, and a whole like day and a half of frustration just like poured out of me. And I was like punching the wall, and I was like dropping F-bombs. And this is like 200 yards from the tee box. And so I
Right.
thought I was just, and then I was like, okay, I feel better. I got that. But I opened the door, and Alfonso was waiting to use the bathroom, and his eyes were so big. He's like, the look on his face, like, my partner is a lunatic. And it's like, neither one of us said a thing. I just like slinked off, feeling like lower than, grass.
Well, it doesn't beat. Well, you look at Steve Pate, can't be worse than him teeing up to the marker and taking a full swing, or Woody Austin bending his putter over his head, which is classic.
The difference is those guys are really good at golf, so they have a right to be frustrated when it goes sideways. Like for me, I'm not good enough.
Fair enough.
But anyway, that's to me, without a doubt, the most embarrassing moment in my golfing life.
That's awesome. That's we've all had that moment, and I like to say that Nelson Mandela would be walking down the fairway swearing his head off. So golf is it's a frustrating game, so it can get the best of anybody. What do you think for the field this week? Any predictions on who you may see hold up the trophy in the LIV Tour?
Oh man, I think it'll be half the guys in the field. You really have no name recognition at all.
Yeah,
the casual fan, but for them, this is life-changing opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, Dustin, they got their money up front, right? So this is really just an exhibition for them. But these guys who, like Chase Koepka, okay, who's just been struggling to even make a living on the Latino America Tour and the Corn Ferry, like all of a sudden he can win $4 million, which, that spends in the real world, but it pretty much guarantees you can keep chasing your dream as long as you want. You can fund the pursuit for another 10 years, 20
100%.
years. And so
I also got James.
Well, the catch-22 is if they're banned from actually pursuing their dream on the PGA Tour. That's sort of, there are other tours that you could, make a living at, Canadian Tour, Latin American Tour, Asian Tour, Challenge Tour, I suppose. But if restrictions start happening, these guys won't have an out.
I really don't. I think this is going to all get sorted out, because it's not in the interest of the PGA Tour to ban its most popular players. And, Phil, Dustin, and Ricky would be among the most popular players. Yeah. And the Saudis have very cleverly courted this whole generation of young players. And the tour needs to be minting new stars. No one had heard of Scotty Scheffler 2 years ago, or Colin Morikawa 3.5 years ago. Like, if it just doesn't serve the PGA Tour well. I mean, or the European Tour. So I have a feeling there's going to be some accommodation made at some point. But I mean, that's part of what makes this moment chaotic, is we don't know. I mean, you bring up a valid point. Like, these guys always dreamed of playing the PGA Tour, but ultimately it's so cutthroat. I mean, there's what the Saudis identified was a market inefficiency, that there's all these players dying to find a place to play, like an Andy Ogletree who can't get starts anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you can, even if you play well, you can go broke on the Latino America or the Canadian Tour. Whereas you can hone your craft on these LIV events and play against, future Hall of Famers with a pretty big spotlight, and make a good living as you're learning the business of professional golf. So they're going to attract a lot of the young talent. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, you look at this kid, James P.O., if I'm pronouncing that right, just turned pro, last year's U.S. Amateur champion. How would what kind of a story would that be if he wins $4 million this week, and like you said, has the money to fund his dream, right?
Right.
It's good. It's going to be fun to watch all this play out. And again, like I said earlier, it's given us fuel to talk about. You guys, the Fire Pit Collective, are going to run away with some of the stories that come out of this tour and the PGA's comments. So it's going to be fun to watch.
I agree. No, it's it's a unique moment in the sport, and like I'm gonna jump on a plane tonight and fly over to London because I just decided I got to be there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good move. And
Yeah.
one other thing that came up this week is they hired Arlo White, the former Premier League commentator, to be the lead announcer for LIV Tour. So how that's going to play out in terms of making the commentating more interesting, because we PGA Tour has been criticized a little bit for the commentating to be boring some tournaments. So we'll see. I mean, it seemed like Greg's just handing out money on all facets of the tour over there.
Yeah, there's some funny social media going out there with Greg handing out money with that.
Yes.
What you sent me. Who sent that to you, Mike? Or who was that?
That came from Rock Bottom Golf.
Sorry.
Yes.
But what? Hey, Mike or Alan, do you know where we could actually watch the LIV Tour? Is it going to be on Twitch or YouTube? Is it going to be?
It's going to stream. It's going to stream on YouTube. That's a work in progress. I mean, I think that now that they have some box office names, it'll be easier for them to attract some TV coverage, but
it'll be free. Will it?
Initially, yes. Yeah. But yeah, they have hired some established people in the realm of commentating. So hopefully it won't be too clunky, the live stream.
Yeah.
Live streaming is not easy, and we've all seen the technical glitches and all that. So
that's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, I'm sure they've got a solid tech team, but sometimes things go wrong. We've lost streams mid-show before. It's part of technology. So it's again another layer of the onion, and it's going to be great to watch.
I agree.
We're pushing your time window here, Alan. Is there anything you'd like to throw a shout out to before we let you go?
No, I mean, as you said, firepitcollective.com is my home. That's where all my stories from London will appear this week. So and yeah, if people are interested in buying the book, I would just say, if you find a local independent bookstore to support, that's always a great thing. But any way you come to it, I'm appreciative.
You have signed books through Source in California. I actually tried to buy one through there, but it looks like they won't ship to Canada.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about that, but 100%. So I'm looking forward to diving in and reading the whole thing.
Hey, and Alan, thanks for your time. I know how busy you are. Good luck and be safe out in London. We're looking forward to your perspective and seeing everything that you write about and talk about. And congratulations on all the success at Fire Big Collective. I guess for Michael Bleackley, I'm Rafael Kalamat. You've been listening to Alan Shipnuck on the Golf Podcast Live.
Thanks, everybody. And as usual, you can find us on most of the major podcast platforms, and our social media feeds. We'll be sharing this show once we finish today, and it'll be available tomorrow wherever you stream your shows. Alan, thank you so much again. Appreciate your time, and best of luck over there in London.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for your patience. I know I've been a little elusive, but I'm glad we got this done. So
so we are too.